Pandemic in a century could stop Vladimir Putin forging ahead with a referendum to extend his own rule.
At this point, there's probably no replacement for Putin. If we look at the election results, he's the strongest and most genuine candidate.
President Putin even declared Vote Day a national holiday, and health officials agreed it should proceed despite COVID-19.
I would very much like Putin to stay while he can. He cares about children and the young, and he does everything to be an example for them.
The result will almost certainly be a resounding yes and allow the president to remain at the helm for another 16 years. That's despite his popularity falling to its lowest level since he came to power in 1999.
Things will get worse. The Kremlin is very afraid of mass outrage. And through these changes, it's bringing about a virtually complete destruction of the Constitution.
The new Constitution is already in bookshops. For those brave enough to speak out against President Putin, it can be a lonely fight for democracy.
People are scared, intimidated, but that's authoritarianism. This is how it's built.
Vladimir Putin has been leader for Sergei Domainov's entire life. Now 18 years old, he's voting for the first time and wants Putin gone.
It's actually terrifying because we are cut off from our possibility to choose our leader. So here I'm being asked.
He's casting his ballot online, another first in Russia, to help boost turnout.
It's a very hard situation here right now, but I really hope something will change their minds and they will try to make this place a better one.
It's a hope unlikely to be realised. As this parade last week showed, the power of President Putin is still widely celebrated. Samantha Hawley, ABC News.
To the day's finance news now with Sue Lannon. And Sue, home prices are going down again.
Yes, no surprise there because of the damage caused by the coronavirus, but also the restrictions and the business shutdowns and government restrictions did very much hit demand hard. Now, if we have a look at what happened with the prices, overall national prices, according to CoreLogic, fell 0.7%. So that follows a 0.4% fall in May, amid the spread of the economic fallout from the coronavirus. So the 5 largest capital cities saw their prices fall. Values fell just over 1% in Melbourne and Perth, also fell by 0.8% in Sydney over the month. Prices rose slightly in Hobart, Darwin and Canberra. So it was the second month of falls in a row, but came after. But sales did pick up. That's as coronavirus restrictions eased. There was a low, of course, in April because of the lockdowns. Now, CoreLogic's Eliza Owen says home prices, though, are expected to fall as much as 10% nationally because of the recession.
We did see a fairly mild decline in dwelling values, down 0.7% over the month nationally, higher than the 0.4% rate we saw in May. So the cumulative decline over the past 2 months is quite mild at just 1%. We did see a strong recovery in sales volumes, back up about 30% over June. So we think that these mild price declines and increased sales volumes are being supported by record low mortgage rates and improved consumer sentiment as Australia gets ahead of the virus curve.
But some of those sales, would they be forced sales because people lost their jobs?
So we haven't seen a significant uplift in the orders of valuations for mortgagee in possession, which is what we would usually track to get an understanding of forced sales.
But you are expecting quite a sizable fall in home prices as unemployment keeps rising, currently at 7.1%.
Yeah, so consensus around price falls is generally that we'd see this kind of peak to trough decline of 10% nationally. I think some of the things that are helping us see a decline that is not more material than that is obviously banks offering these mortgage holidays. We've seen that improvement in consumer sentiment. So overall, we're not expecting a kind of big housing market crash.
Now, sticking with housing, it has been revealed that there was a big slump in building approvals for May.
Yeah, no real surprise because, of course, you still had some of the restrictions and lockdowns in place, and people are very cautious about building a house or renovating a house, especially if they've lost their jobs. One of the reasons that the federal government brought in this $700 million construction industry package to help the home building industry. So the Bureau of Statistics says home approvals fell more than 16% from April to May on a seasonally adjusted basis. But Kirsten, a big fall in apartment approvals, down by 35% at an 11-year low. And interestingly, Tasmania saw applications for building permits overall fall by 23%. Big slump also in Victoria and New South Wales. We saw also the total value of building approval drop. No surprise there. Some other data, though, was more good news. The engineering, in terms of engineering work, the value of work yet to be done is at a 5-year high of $76 billion. So if all those projects are completed, at least that will give some boost to the economy.
And it is the first day of the financial year. How are the markets entering the new year?
Yeah, well, it was a bit of a slow start, but then the market rose as much as 1% because there was some good manufacturing figures out of China and also the hope of more stimulus in the US and, of course, in Australia. The market's now come off its highs. ASX 200 up 22 points in afternoon trade, so that's up about 0.25%. The All Ordinaries up 28 points. So we've got banks, industrial and tech stocks, miners doing well, but oil stocks are leading the falls. Concerns about the rise in coronavirus cases has seen oil prices drop. Looking at the movers, AMP higher today. It's completed the sale of its life insurance business for $3 billion to global life insurer Resolution Life. Lend-Lease, the property developer, expecting a loss for the financial year of up to $340 million. The PNG-focused oil and gas producer Oil Search is higher. It's cut 34% of its workforce since March. Insurer Suncorp preparing for higher natural disaster costs after last year's summer bushfire crisis, and that fall in oil prices today is hurting oil firms, as I mentioned. Ampol down 4%. That's the former Caltex. Now in Asia, Nikkei is in the red. The Shanghai market higher after those manufacturing figures came out. Also another cut in interest rates. Hong Kong's markets closed to mark National Day. That's the handover of Hong Kong from British to Chinese rule in 1997. But of course the focus is on China passing a national security law which cracks down on political freedoms in Hong Kong and also labels disrupting public transport as terrorism. Now let's have a look at US markets. We did see Wall Street rise again. Investors locking in profits for the end of the financial year and hoping for more stimulus. However, there was a warning from the top US infectious diseases expert that more infections were coming. Dow Jones Index put on nearly 1%, helped by a strong consumer confidence survey. The S&P 500 rose, in fact saw its best quarterly surge in 2 decades. That's after a 20% plunge in the March quarter. Looking at commodities now, spot gold is higher because of increasing uncertainty due to rising coronavirus infections, and oil prices also have fallen. West Texas crude fell overnight, is weaker in futures trade, but Tapper's crude is a bit higher. Now, the Australian dollar's come off today's high, was actually above 69 US cents, has dropped back now in afternoon trade, buying around 68.9 US cents. It's mainly lower now against other major currencies, Kirsten.
Thanks, Sue. Now, in breaking news this hour, Victoria has recorded its single biggest increase in coronavirus community transmissions to date in the COVID-19 pandemic. There are now 301 cases of community transmission in the state. That's up 20 from 281 yesterday. Locally acquired cases are classified as community transmission if, after investigation by the Health Department, no source of infection can be found. The 20 additional cases today are not necessarily among the 73 additional cases announced earlier by the government. We will hear more from Acting Chief Medical Officer Paul Kelly shortly. He is due to speak from Canberra in the next few minutes. We'll take you there when it begins. Now, it is Territory Day in the top end, but this year it's obviously a little different. Fireworks have been banned. It is a uniquely Territorian tradition that has become the latest victim of physical distancing. Cameron Gooley joins us from Darwin to tell us more. Cameron, how are people looking to celebrate Territory Day instead?
Well, Kirsten, today marks 42 years since self-governance was granted to the Northern Territory. And as you mentioned, fireworks are banned today, which is quite unusual. In fact, they're so popular here that they've become synonymous with the day, and it's even colloquially referred to as Cracker Night. Now, they were banned because the Chief Minister, in April, about 2 months ago, back when the pandemic was still looking uncertain, he didn't want emergency services or hospitals to be overwhelmed. And he said businesses were urging him to cancel it early rather than later. Now, it will look different, but Territorians are still being urged to go out and find other ways to safely celebrate self-governance, including going to venues.
OK, so what will happen if someone decides to set off fireworks anyway?
Police are going to be patrolling pretty heavily tonight. They're saying that if anyone is caught letting off any fireworks or firecrackers, they'll slap them with a $1,500 fine. They'll also be out doing things like random breath tests. Now, of course, police also said that traditionally around this time there's an increase in fires, so they've said that fire services will be aware of that. We'll see a little later on whether they'll be coming out in force and whether they'll be on standby. We're hoping to hear from them this afternoon. OK, so fireworks might be off the table, but there is a local music countdown. That's right. Look, Music NT and the ABC will be broadcasting a Territory Top 40 countdown of Northern Territory artists to celebrate local music talent. That'll be playing from the ABC Local Radio's Drive program from about 4 o'clock, and it'll be going throughout the night. Kirsten?
Enjoy your night, Cameron. Thanks so much. You can keep up to date at news.abc.net.au and on iView. Here are the top stories on ABC News this afternoon. Victoria has recorded another 73 new cases of coronavirus as hotspot suburbs in Melbourne prepare to enter lockdown from midnight tonight. 3 new cases are from hotel quarantine, 9 are linked to known outbreaks, and 19 are from routine testing. Contact tracing is underway for the remaining 42 cases. The federal opposition has thrown its support behind the major shift in Australia's defence strategy announced by the Prime Minister today. There will be a stronger focus on the Indo-Pacific region and $270 billion in funding for defence capabilities over the next 10 years. One of the Bushfire Royal Commissioners has lashed out at firefighting agencies, saying new national fire warnings must be drawn up as soon as possible. The Commission's been told there was confusion in border communities last summer because of different warnings from different agencies. Work on creating a uniform warning system began in 2016 but won't be ready to be introduced until 2022. And we're taking you now
so first of all,
live to Canberra, where the Acting Chief Medical Officer is providing a coronavirus update.
Victoria.